The 2026 Anduril 250 at Naval Base Coronado produced one of the most debated finishes in recent NASCAR Cup Series history, and the conversation started before Corey Heim even made it to victory lane. A part-time driver, in his 13th career Cup Series start, beat the championship leader, who also happened to be his own teammate, and the manner in which it happened immediately split the NASCAR community down the middle. Before anyone could process what they had just witnessed, the arguments about legitimacy, sportsmanship, and competitive ethics were already flooding every corner of the sport. Naval Base Coronado was itself a landmark moment for NASCAR. The 3.4-mile street circuit with 16 turns marked the first time the Cup Series had ever raced on an active military installation, and the 50,000-person sellout crowd reflected the scale of the occasion. What made the attendance figure even more striking was that 67% of those fans were attending a NASCAR event for the first time, a demographic reality that underscored exactly what the sanctioning body was attempting to accomplish by bringing the sport to a non-traditional venue in San Diego. The pre-race storylines were layered before a single green flag lap was completed. Shane Van Gisbergen claimed pole position and arrived at Coronado as the most credentialed road and street circuit driver in the field, having accumulated 7 Cup Series wins on road or street circuits. Tyler Reddick was starting from the rear of the field after NASCAR penalized the number 45 Toyota for unapproved pre-race adjustments. Corey Heim, meanwhile, was starting 13th and generating no serious discussion as a race winner. He was a part-timer running a limited schedule while waiting for his full-time opportunity, and nothing about his entry suggested he would be the name on everyone's lips by Sunday evening. The early running produced immediate chaos. Bubba Wallace suffered a right front-wheel detachment on lap 18, an incident that triggered the suspension of 2 crew members as NASCAR investigated how the failure occurred. Simultaneously, Christopher Bell, still managing the effects of a fractured wrist sustained at Michigan, completed a scheduled driver change that brought Brent Cruz into the number 20 Toyota, only for Cruz's stint to end prematurely due to a gearbox failure. Jimmy Johnson made contact with a tire barrier and, after the race, addressed his own future, specifically referencing the 2027 Daytona 500 as a target he was focused on. The race's defining moment of destruction arrived on lap 32. Connor Zilisch and Austin Hill made violent contact heading into the outside wall, and Shane Van Gisbergen had nowhere to go, collecting the impact immediately. What began as a 2-car incident expanded into a 9-car wreck that drew in Carlos Suarez, Blay, Herbst, Nemechek, Gibbs, and McDowell. The red flag flew for 9 minutes and 33 seconds as Cruz cleared the debris and assessed the damage. Zilisch, speaking after the race, addressed the incident directly and acknowledged what it meant for his rookie season in terms of both the physical damage sustained and the playoff implications that followed from it. The crash effectively removed Van Gisbergen, who had entered the day as the favorite, from any realistic chance at a top finish. While the wreck reshaped the field, Corey Heim was quietly fighting through a race that had not gone smoothly from the opening laps. He made contact with the wall twice in the early stages of the event and fell back to nearly 20th place at one point. What kept Heim in contention was consistent communication from crew chief Robert "Booty" Barker, who maintained a disciplined message around tire management and remaining patient with the number of fresh sets still available. Following stage 2, Heim described a deliberate mindset reset, a conscious decision to stop responding to the circumstances around him and start executing a forward-moving strategy. That internal adjustment, paired with Barker's tire management, became the operational foundation for everything that followed. The closing sequence of the race began with Kyle Larson holding the lead before the green flag pit cycle played out. A caution triggered by Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s fluid on track reshuffled the field, and Carson Hocevar cycled to the lead on older tires relative to the drivers behind him. Hocevar's run at the front ended when he made contact with the wall in turn 12 and spun through the chicane, collecting Ross Chastain in the process. That incident handed the race lead to Reddick, with Heim closing rapidly from behind. With 5 laps remaining, Tyler Reddick led by 0.4 of a second. Heim was applying pressure and closing the gap with each successive corner. In turn 2, Reddick had a near-wall moment, a brief but meaningful loss of momentum that opened a window Heim immediately pressed through. The 2 cars ran side by side through turns 3 and 4, and the contact came in turn 5. Reddick pushed Heim toward the barrier, a moment that was visible and unambiguous on both the broadcast feed and the in-car cameras. Reddick then lifted, voluntarily surrendering the position to his teammate rather than continuing the fight. Shortly after, Reddick's left front tire blew, dropping him from contention and eventually leaving him classified in 25th place. Heim went on to win by a margin of 10.365 seconds over Bubba Wallace, giving 23XI Racing a 1-2 finish. Kyle Larson finished third, Zane Smith fourth, and AJ Allmendinger fifth. When it was over, Reddick went directly to victory lane, not to celebrate, but to congratulate his teammate and take ownership of what had happened on track. "That was my fault," Reddick said in his post-race comments, addressing the contact in Turn 5 without deflection or qualification. The statement was notable for its directness and for what it implied about how Reddick understood the sequence of events. That admission, combined with the voluntary position surrender, became the centerpiece of the controversy that Carson Hocevar ignited publicly in the hours that followed. Hocevar argued that Reddick giving back the lead diminished the value of the win itself, that a victory earned through a teammate stepping aside rather than through on-track speed carried an asterisk that the celebration in victory lane did not reflect. Hocevar invoked the Michael Jordan analogy in making his case, that championship-caliber competitors do not hand positions to teammates mid-race, and that the act of surrendering undermined the competitive integrity of the finish. The argument found real traction online and in media coverage, dividing the fan base between those who viewed Reddick's decision as an example of sportsmanship and those who aligned with Hocevar's framework for what competitive racing demands. The counter-argument to Hocevar's position rests on a straightforward reconstruction of what Heim actually accomplished before that contact even occurred. He absorbed 2 wall hits in the opening stage, fell to nearly 20th place, survived one of the largest multi-car incidents of the season, tracked down Kyle Larson who had led the race comfortably, and applied enough pressure to Tyler Reddick, the season's championship leader, that Reddick made a driving error that Reddick himself fully acknowledged and owned. The position surrender followed from the contact, and the contact followed from Reddick's mistake, not from a pre-arranged team strategy. By the time those final 5 laps arrived, Heim had already earned his presence at the front of the field through a genuine recovery drive over the course of the full afternoon. Understanding who Corey Heim is adds additional dimension to the result. He is from Marietta, Georgia, and won the 2024 NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series Championship. When full-time Cup Series opportunities became available to him following that title, he made the deliberate decision to decline them and wait for the 2027 23XI Racing seat that had been arranged for him. The 2025 Chicago Street Course qualifying failure, which occurred on his 22nd birthday, had been a difficult public moment for a driver who was supposed to be capable of translating Truck Series speed to a road circuit environment. Winning at Coronado 1 year later, on another street circuit, completed a full-circle arc that his supporters were quick to highlight in the post-race discussion. Inside the 23XI organization, the day produced additional storylines beyond the finish itself. Joe Carroll competed in his first Cup Series race as rear tire changer on Heim's pit crew and used victory lane to announce, in what was framed as a joke, that he was retiring at the peak of his career. All 4 23XI cars were running inside the top 5 simultaneously during the final stage, a formation that reflected the organization's growing depth across its entire lineup. Denny Hamlin, in his dual role as driver and co-owner, has now accumulated 4 wins in 2026, adding another layer to how comprehensively the organization is performing across the current season. The win also renewed a broader conversation about the Truckster Cup pipeline as a team-building philosophy. Heim winning in 13 Cup starts following a Truck Series championship sits alongside Carson Hocevar's Talladega victory this season and Zane Smith's consistent front-running performance as data points for a pathway that has produced results. The contrast with Ty Gibbs and Connor Zilisch, both of whom bypassed the Truck Series entirely and have faced more visible adjustment challenges at the Cup level, has sharpened the debate about what developmental experience actually produces in a driver's readiness for the top series. The championship picture tightened considerably as a result of the day. Tyler Reddick's lead over Denny Hamlin in the standings collapsed to 8 points following his 25th place finish. The calendar now points immediately to Sonoma, where the June 28 date carries specific weight for Shane van Gisbergen, who led 97 of 110 laps from the pole position at Sonoma last season. The pressure on Reddick to halt the momentum swing before it compounds further is tangible, and the events at Coronado, from the unapproved adjustment penalty at the start of the day to the tire failure in the closing laps, represent the kind of compounding adversity that can shift a championship race in a matter of weeks if it is not reversed quickly. The 2026 Anduril 250 will be remembered for the controversy, but the facts of the race tell a more complete story. A driver with 13 career Cup starts executed a full afternoon recovery, survived a chaotic and destructive race, and crossed the finish line first. Whether the final 5 laps complicate that story or simply add texture to it is a question the NASCAR world will continue to debate heading into Sonoma, and that debate itself is a measure of how much the result mattered. If you want more coverage of everything happening in NASCAR and across professional football, make sure you subscribe to NASCAR Race News and give this video a like so the channel can keep bringing you this kind of in-depth analysis every single week.